There and back again, a Goggins tale. Welcome to our new video, where we explore an intriguing what-if scenario. The Lord of the Rings certainly had its fair share of hard warriors, but what if we sent one of our own? What if David Goggins was the 12th member of the Fellowship of the Ring? We begin our journey in the village of Bree. Gandalf the Grey has left a letter of great urgency with the forgetful innkeeper of the Prancing Pony, Barlaman Butterbur, with instruction for it to be delivered to Hobbiton while he himself departs in pursuit of the ring wraiths, in hope the letter will find its way to Frodo before it's too late. The letter warns him to depart for Rivendell immediately and to look out for a man called Aragorn on his journey, for he is a man who can be trusted and will help him. Unfortunately, Butterbur was unable to find a messenger the following day or the next day. On the third day, he forgot his duty entirely. That is, until a strange-looking newcomer to Bree entered his tavern after dark. The appearance of the strange-looking man, drenched in sweat with the top of his bald head giving off steam like a billowing kettle, caused a nervous silence to descend upon the merry inhabitants, who eyed him warily, hands inching toward their weapons. "Good evening, friend," welcomed Butterbur, masking his surprise. "How may I assist you?" "Help? I ain't no bitch," the man snapped back, his tone direct and unyielding. Taken aback by this response, Butterbur carefully navigates the conversation. "My apologies. I meant no offense. Might I inquire who you are and whence you came?" "I'm a United States Army Ranger. Name's Goggins, and I'm from America," Goggins responded. He seemed unable to stand still for long, shifting on the balls of his feet like a horse raring to go. "A ranger, you say?" repeated the barman loudly, causing a murmur to run through the packed room of onlookers. "What brings you to Bree?" "I'm heading to Hobbiton," declared Goggins. "On what business, if I may ask?" asked Butterbur, finally recalling Gandalf's letter and sensing an opportunity to fulfill his old friend's request. "I met some old dude called Gandalf on Weathertop yesterday who asked me to check on some little bitches in Hobbiton." "Weathertop? But that's 100 miles away." Butterbur gasped, awe-stricken. "You covered that distance in a day?" "Yes, sir." "And you met Gandalf?" "Yes, sir." "Then might we speak privately?" Butterbur suggests, leading Goggins to a secluded room away from prying ears, generally reserved for hookers. Once alone, Butterbur spoke openly. "Gandalf left a letter with me for Mr. Underhill in Hobbiton. It's urgent. Since you're headed there and seem to be on similar business, would you be so kind as to deliver it?" "No shit. Gandalf asked me to find Mr. Underhill as well. He said he'd fuck you up if you hadn't sent it, but hey, I'll deliver it now," replied Goggins, taking the letter from Butterbur. "I'm eternally grateful, Mr. Goggins, sir. In that case, I'll prepare a room for you to rest before you depart," Butterbur offered. "I ain't no bitch. We're good to go now, baby. I'll reach Hobbiton by tomorrow evening." "But it's 120 miles to Hobbiton," exclaimed Butterbur in disbelief. "Surely your steed will require rest." "Don't have one because I'm not a pussy. I don't stop when I'm tired. I stop when I'm done," retorted Goggins, who had returned to bouncing on the balls of his feet like a crackhead itching for his next fix. "Stay hard," he bellowed, spit flying from his mouth. With a sharp nod, Butterbur quickly provided directions and advice for the journey ahead. "Very well then. Safe travels." Without another word, Goggins left to begin his 120-mile cross-country run to Hobbiton. "What an odd fellow," said Butterbur aloud to himself before he rejoined the congregation. Goggins' journey to Hobbiton was quite smooth for the most part, aside from a couple minor inconveniences along the way, including an altercation with Farmer Maggot and his large dogs. But Goggins had been warned of the overly grumpy farmer and remained undeterred. "I'ma fuck you up, Maggot," he shouted without looking back at the pursuing farmer as he continued without stopping to deal with the situation. At the 100-mile mark, Goggins shit himself, but again chose not to interrupt his run as he was still making good pace towards his destination. He arrived at Hobbiton shortly after sunset the following day. Checking the address on the envelope, which was now smudged as he had used it to wipe his ass of the excess shit many miles before. Still, he could just about discern the wizard's spidery handwriting beneath the brown marks. As dusk settled over Hobbiton, David Goggins reached the round green door of Bag End. After a brief moment to adjust the now nearly illegible envelope, he knocked firmly. "Open up, motherfucker," he said, knocking loudly. The door soon opened, revealing a puzzled Frodo Baggins, unprepared for both the sight or stench that invaded his nostrils. "Good evening," Frodo managed, his nose wrinkling slightly as he took in the towering, sweat-soaked figure. "Can I help you?" "Got a letter from Mr. Underhill. Urgent stuff from Gandalf," Goggins replied, handing over the stained envelope, which Frodo took gingerly, doing his best attempt to avoid the worst of the caking around the edges. While Frodo read the contents, Goggins, restless as ever, started lunging across the manicured garden. Frodo glanced up just in time to see Goggins shift from lunges to sprints, his physical prowess unmistakable. A postscript in the letter caught Frodo's eye. "By some called Strider." "Well, he certainly is a Strider," Frodo mumbled to himself, watching Goggins now tackle pull-ups on a low-hanging branch of the party tree. Sam, ever protective, leaned in and whispered, "Gandalf wouldn't have sent him if he weren't trustworthy." Both hobbits now stood in silence, observing the stranger before them, who seemed to embody the energy of the Shire itself through his endless exertions. It was then Sam voiced a naive concern. "The big folks are quite peculiar, and I've never seen a black one before. Is he one of those black riders Gandalf warned us about?" Frodo chuckled softly, reassuring his friend. "No, Sam, he's not one of the Black Riders. I can't imagine them bringing letters from Gandalf. The letter also has a postscript, which I believe matches this messenger. This Strider is a man, lean, dark, and tall." "He's certainly dark," shrugged Sam. "All that is gold does not glitter. No, my dear Sam, I'm afraid the darkest thing about him is the smell. It stings the nose, but it is not foul as I would expect of the servants of the enemy." Reassured, Sam nodded, though he still watched Goggins with a mixture of awe and slight bewilderment. Meanwhile, Frodo folded the letter, considering the strange yet compelling presence this man brought into their peaceful world. As Goggins finally paused his physical feats to catch his breath, Frodo invited him inside. "Come, Mr. Strider. Let's discuss this letter more comfortably over a meal. You must be famished after such a journey." "Let's go, motherfuckers," shouted Goggins as he stepped into the warm, inviting hobbit hole. After taking up Frodo's offer of a bath before supper, Goggins stepped out into the dining room in a spare set of wizard's robes left behind by Gandalf the last time he had visited. "This shit's comfy as hell," said Goggins, fist-bumping Frodo. "You're most welcome. So, friend of Gandalf, what do we call you?" asked Frodo. "Goggins," he responded simply. "Very well, Mr. Goggins. Gandalf's letter urged that I leave at once, and I had intended on waiting till my birthday, but I think we should leave the day after tomorrow. That should give us enough time to pack up and prepare." "Stop being a little bitch," shouted Goggins. Taken aback, Frodo thought for a minute before revising his plan. "You're right, Mr. Goggins. Fine. It is better to be cautious and leave earlier than risk being late. We'll leave tomorrow morning after breakfast. Sam, can you make the arrangements?" "Yes, sir. Mr. Frodo, sir," responded Sam. "He your bitch?" inquired Goggins. "He's my gardener," replied Frodo politely, correcting Goggins and gesturing him to the seat by the fire. "So, what did Gandalf tell you? Is he coming?" asked Frodo. Goggins hesitated a moment before responding. "He mentioned something about destroying your ring. Sounded hella gay, but I got no problem with that man." "Gay. Then he must have had some good news regarding my ring," said Frodo, feeling a small wave of optimism about the impending journey he was about to undertake. After all, Gandalf had been gay when speaking to Goggins. He supposed it could only have been good news that had made the wizard happy. "Where is he now? Will he meet us on the way?" continued Frodo eagerly. "He's gonna see another wizard guy who might be able to help." "Destroy your ring," he said, replied Goggins awkwardly, not expecting the direction this conversation had taken. "Would you like to see it?" asked Frodo excitedly, having taken a liking to this friend of Gandalf's. Hey bro, I'm not into that shit, bro. Like, it's cool if you are, but that ain't me," responded Goggins, recoiling slightly as a wave of fear washed over him. Like the time P. Diddy had brushed past him at an award ceremony. He shivered despite the roaring fire. "I sometimes find myself fingering it," continued Frodo. "Aw, hell no," shouted Goggins, feeling revulsion at the sight of the little halfling. "He's trying to take my soul," thought Goggins, desperately trying to recall his Navy SEAL training. He couldn't let that happen. He had to find a way to outgay this little homosexual creature and guard against any advances. "What happens when you do?" he asked Frodo. "It disappears when you put a finger inside. I disappear." "This little motherfucker's got a magic asshole," thought Goggins. Frodo went on. "It feels cold now. It's been so long since I've slipped my finger inside it." "How many have used your ring?" asked Goggins bravely. "Well, my Uncle Bilbo, and before him, Gollum," Frodo replied. "Your uncle?" spat Goggins in disgust. "I think that's enough for one night," he said, standing up abruptly and making a mental note not to fall asleep around this perverted little deviant. "I've had Sam prepare the spare bedroom. It's the last door on the left." The next morning, after a restful night and a hearty breakfast provided by his gracious host, the group set out through the morning mist, leaving a still slumbering hobbiton behind. As they ventured forward, Goggins reflected on his conversation with Frodo the previous night. While he still didn't understand how destroying the Hobbit's overused ring would save the world, he decided he would continue with the mission he had committed to like a good soldier, no matter how hard it got. After all, it wasn't the strangest thing he'd ever heard of. He set a ferocious pace in the wizard's robes, feeling duty-bound to cuss out the hobbits for falling behind at regular intervals. Eventually getting sick of the lazy fuckers and opting instead to carry the two hobbits much of the way until they got to Farmer Maggot's farm, and after a brief altercation in which Goggins thoroughly assaulted the bad-tempered farmer and frightened off his dogs, they were back on their way. Arriving at Frodo's new residence at Crickhollow, where Merry and Pippin awaited them with ponies readied for the journey ahead. There they spent the night and enjoyed the mushrooms Frodo and Sam had quietly acquired while Goggins had been dealing with the farmer before continuing on the next leg of their journey, now accompanied by Merry and Pippin. "Stay hard," bellowed Goggins, startling the weary hobbits as they arrived at the gate of Bree the following evening. As Goggins, Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin entered the prancing pony, they were greeted by a mixture of curiosity and wariness from the locals. Butterbur, the innkeeper of the prancing pony, upon noticing the group's entrance, did a double-take. His eyes widened in recognition as they landed on Goggins. Pushing through the bustling crowd, Butterbur approached them, his expression one of awe and gratitude. "Mr. Goggins," he exclaimed, barely containing his excitement. "Never in my years have I seen a message delivered with such incredible speed. You've outdone even the swiftest of our messengers. I heard tell of your swift passage through the land. You've done a great service, and I'm mightily impressed." Goggins nodded, accepting the praise with a modest grunt. "They don't know me, son." Butterbur leaned in closer, lowering his voice to a confidential whisper. "I must warn you, though," he said, glancing nervously towards a shadowed corner of the inn. "There's a man here, goes by the name of Strider. He's been asking after the hobbits, and if he means good, then I'm a hobbit." The group's attention shifted subtly towards the corner Butterbur had indicated. There, a tall, cloaked figure sat alone, his face obscured by the hood of his cloak, sipping his drink quietly, but with an air of alertness. "Strider, eh?" Goggins mused aloud, his gaze fixed on the mysterious figure. "Frodo, recalling the postscript in Gandalf's letter, felt a twinge of recognition. Gandalf mentioned him in his letter, called him a friend, Frodo informed Goggins, who looked back at him with a raised eyebrow. "I think I'll go talk to him," Goggins said nonchalantly, making his way across to the lone figure in the corner. As Butterbur left them to attend to his other guests, the hobbits watched anxiously as Goggins approached the mysterious Strider, ready to draw weapons should the need arise.
Thanks for joining us on this adventure. If you enjoyed the journey and are eager for more wild fan fiction, don't forget to hit that like button, share with your fellow fans, and subscribe for more episodes. And if you're as enchanted by the idea of Middle-earth meeting Hogwarts as we are, make sure to check out our series exploring this magical crossover. Your support brings these worlds to life. Until next time, keep the